So let's talk about this film. I got a chance to preview it.
What'd you think?
Good.
Oh my gosh, I loved it. Any chance you could see footage and background and history like that about Randy and everything, just the whole coming together from the beginning. It was awesome.
Oh, I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, I can't wait
That's
till our listeners can. We have just such huge fans. So this is exciting.
It's a really touching story, isn't it?
Tell me about the beginning and why, Andre, how long was this in the works for you to do this?
You know, a lot of documentaries can take many, many years. I was very fortunate to be able to put this together within a year. There was an existing documentary that a talented filmmaker as well as a photographer made called The Early Years. It was Randy and the Quiet Riot Years. It was a 2012 documentary. It never really got released. So I was able to license a lot of the Quiet Riot Years footage from him, which really helped. You know, it helped me with a big chunk of the documentary. And then I was able to, interview and get other footage out there. And I put it together in a year.
That's amazing.
Just real quick, I just want to say the other reason why it was a year is I really was wanting to get it out on the 40th anniversary. I wanted to originally release it last month. You know, it's getting released May 6th, but I wanted to hit that target date. So I knew when I started on this, I had a short period of time.
Let's talk about a little bit about his influence in the beginning as a guitarist, the school, Musonia, and the teacher not being able to keep up with him, and just how he was classically trained. And
Well, the thing with Randy is that the misconception is that he started out classically trained. It's backwards of that. It's a rock guitar player who had an interest in classical music. And as time went on with Ozzy is when he really started taking classical guitar lessons on tour. You know, so when he was writing Diary of a Madman and some of the other things that are really classical sounding, he really wasn't what a traditional classical guitar player, thank God, because he came up with something really original and cool. But, he was, based in blues rock. But he really had his own voice, his own personality. The personality has so much to do with the lead guitarist's appeal, and that's what I really find with the documentary is that his personality comes across. It seems to have the same personality from a teenager to an adult. When I was a young teenager, when he was in Ozzy, he was just like a mythical creature to me, like, wow, that sound and the way he looked. I was obsessed with him, so when I got the call to narrate his story, it was really coming full circle in my life. I'm really, really glad that people are going to get to just at will see the story and his life story and what he's all about. It's magic.
Everybody says that he glowed. He was a light. You hear this all the time. Like, they're blown away by his talent. And, even Ozzy, poetry in motion, all these things that he had an aura about him. Like, he fit the rock star. He looked the part, like you said. He fit that part so well. He was actually frightened by that, right? It says in the film that, it came so fast that would go to his head. And he said, no.
People don't realize how young he was when he became a superstar. And imagine your friend that's 23 years old being Randy Rhoads. It's just like, he was so different. He was such a different human being. And to have that ability to keep his ego in check just makes him greater. I haven't stopped talking about Randy Rhoads since I was 17 years old.
He definitely had the it factor and the celebrity, and for being such a small guy with this massive presence, like you said, he's so likable because of the fact that he wasn't arrogant.
You could look at it this way too. He was the hired guitar player for Ozzy Osbourne.
I know.
And he became the star.
And he didn't want to do it initially. He didn't even like Black Sabbath. That's another thing that I got. I was like, what? He wasn't a Sabbath fan, and then look where he ended up. Yeah. And then didn't they have Frankie? Like, he brought Frankie there, who was in the room, who kind of saw it all come together too.
Yeah, that's right, because Frankie was the auditioning drummer. But the whole point is that you have this little guy making a big sound, getting hired by a superstar, and this little guy with a guitar becomes the superstar. I mean, Ozzy doesn't need any more credit. He's Ozzy, like you get this guy, and the world fell in love with him. Yeah. A hired guy. I mean, how many other hired guys can say that?
I always wondered if Ozzy, when it came to writing songs, did he really write the music or just the lyrics? Because Randy's replacing Tony Iommi essentially
Well,
as a partner in writing, and those are huge shoes to fill.
Ozzy really didn't write lyrics ever or music. He wrote some stuff in Sabbath on some weird synthesizer, but with Sabbath, it was Geezer Butler wrote all the lyrics and Tony Iommi wrote the music. With Randy, it was Bob Daisley, the bass player, that wrote the lyrics and really, really, in my opinion, helped Randy put together all that great music. I think Randy wrote the music, but I think Bob had so much experience that he was really able to take Randy's ideas and really put them together. And then with the lyrics, and then I think Ozzy was probably a lot more involved in writing lyrics as a solo artist. But, he definitely had these really talented guys with him. And, and it does take a team, very rare one guy does it all, right?
Yeah, we want to talk about these two albums because Crazy Train, monster of the guitar solo. I mean, would you say he pioneered the art of guitar soloing at that? I mean, just his style was so different, that fast technical, he defined that really.
More than the fast and the technical, it was his melodic sense, it was different than what we had been used to hearing. I mean, we had already heard Eruption, we had heard Van Halen stuff, we had heard, Sabbath, but Randy comes along and it's a totally different approach and it's so mysterious sounding, right? That's the thing with Randy. It's like, whoa, what is that? It's like, wow, and that comes from his personality. That comes from, as nice as a guy as he was on the outside, obviously there's some sadness and melancholy and darkness because you can't make music like that if you don't feel like that, right?
And you mentioned Eruption. There was a part of the film that really talks about Eddie Van Halen and not like a rivalry, but they said that Eddie used to come see him, but he didn't go see.
Kind of true, yeah.
Didn't his guitar tech used to put a picture on his mod pedal, right? Just to give him a rise.
Cover that's in the documentary. Yes, we did.
That was pretty funny. Like just his own students wanting to learn Eddie Van Halen, and his personality, he really shines through. You guys did such a good job editing that all together to show that. It's amazing. And then they did play in concert, right? It was a concert that almost didn't happen.
Yeah,
kind of a fight over who was going to be the headliner. And it's almost like a couple days past in history here. It was like April 23rd of, I don't know what year, but.
Being at that show, that must have been incredible.
Did you ever see him live?
Oh, yeah. Tracy, I don't know if I was too young.
I know,
really,
me too.
Like 6 years old when he was with Ozzy.
Yeah, that would have been my bucket list, but he died when I was 17. I never seen any of I never saw Jimmy Page live. I never saw Hendrix live, obviously, or Randy.
Yeah, everyone has their bucket list for sure. Do you think that Randy would have, I think he had turmoil. Like you kind of show that in the film about that decision to leave his band and kind of take it to the next level, which did bring him to that pro level. But I always speculate if he would have left Ozzy and gone home, would he have done another album with them?
I'm pretty sure. I'm convinced that he was going to leave after that tour. He was frustrated, from my understanding. One thing with having to do a cover album of Black Sabbath songs.
Yeah.
And that, from what I've been told, was pushing him over the edge to leave the band. So I believe he definitely would have left.
Yeah, and if he would have left, it wouldn't have been because of his ego. It would have been
definitely
differences. Not. As great as the music is, Randy being it's hard to be objective, right? Because you're in it. So even though he was getting the accolades and the people were showing up and all this great things are happening, he didn't see it that way. He didn't feel it as a positive thing. Looking in from the outside, you think, wow, why would you leave something like that? But when you're in it, you don't realize, and I don't think he did. And I think that he was probably a little bit sad, there toward the end, to be honest.
And you're working with, a person who epitomizes overindulgence. It's maybe there was some warnings there, and he wants to craft his musicianship, right? He wanted to keep doing that, I believe. So.
I think so too. And I think especially at that age, early mid 20s, that's your time. That's when you really learn. That's when you really develop. And he had already developed so far that, the next 5 or 6 years, who knows? You can only speculate, but I can only imagine had he continued writing heavy music like that, which I would hope he would have, but who's to say, that it would have been quite something special.
Oh, yeah.
What I want people to take away from this movie is I want people to get a better understanding of the Randy Rhoads legacy, his accomplishments, and obviously he had quite a work ethic. His upbringing with having a mother who was running a music school,
Yeah.
and then the trials and tribulations of being a quiet riot, not getting signed, and his chance encounter with Ozzy, and just how he made a big mark on also establishing Ozzy's solo career. And 40 years after, I feel like a lot of people out there don't know about that, and that's what I want out there.
Well, we're so glad that we could celebrate the memory of his life and music legacy in his brief 25 years, and I think people are going to love this film. I was riveted. I think it's fascinating. Everything from the background to the history of how it progressed to the time with Ozzy.
So, just to remind everybody, the film comes out on May 6th. Randy Rhoads, Reflections of a Guitar Icon. And please see it, because people need to see this story.
How can they see it?
You can see it on all the digital platforms, including but not limited to iTunes, Vudu, Fandango now, Ubiquity, Dish, Hoopla, Microsoft Store, Xbox, Google Play, DirecTV.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. Tracy, are you going to perform with LA Guns in Las Vegas at the Cannery?
No, we are playing Vegas over Thanksgiving weekend this year, I believe. And then, we're doing 50 shows with Tom Kiefer starting June 1st.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanksgiving, where are you going to be?
I think we're just playing Vamped 2 nights.
Vamped, okay.
One night, I think we're going to do it where we do one acoustic night and one electric night instead of doing 2 electric nights.
Okay.
Something